I know how this sounds, but 23-year-old Mara Bell bought an abandoned bus station for $17 because the women's shelter was full. Her car wouldn't start, and a boarded-up waiting room was still better than sleeping outside in February. She wasn't looking for treasure. She wasn't chasing some miracle. She just wanted one door in Millhaven that nobody could slam in her face. But behind Locker 9, under a layer of dust so thick it looked gray-blue in the flashlight beam, Mara found an old cassette tape with her name written on it. And when she pressed play, the voice that came out belonged to her mother. The same mother everyone in town had called a thief for 13 years. The same mother Mara had been told abandoned her. And the first thing her mother said on that tape was, "Baby, if you're hearing this, it means Denise lied." Mara Bell had grown up being apologized for. That was the best way to say it. People didn't insult her directly, not always. They just lowered their voices when she walked into a room. Teachers gave her that careful look during parent night. Churchwomen brought her casseroles with pity folded into the foil. And her Aunt Denise, the woman who raised her after her mother disappeared, had a favorite sentence. "Your mama made choices, Mara. Don't make me pay for them." Mara heard that sentence at 9 when she asked why the other kids had birthday parties and she didn't. She heard it at 16 when she needed $38 for a school trip. She heard it at 23, 2 weeks after losing her job at the diner, when Denise stood in the doorway of the spare bedroom with a trash bag in her hand. "Look," Denise said, not looking at her. "I've done what I could. I'm not made of money." Mara was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the only framed photo she had of her mother. Evelyn Bell, 28 years old, brown hair tied back, one hand on the steering wheel of an old city bus, smiling like the world hadn't learned how to hurt her yet. "I can leave tomorrow," Mara whispered. Denise dropped the trash bag on the floor. "No, tonight." That was the part nobody warned her about. Not hunger, not cold, not even being broke. It was the speed with which family could remove you from a room and then act like they were the ones being inconvenienced. Mara packed 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, her mother's photo, and a cracked phone charger. Her cousin Tyler stood in the hallway pretending to text. He didn't help. He didn't even look embarrassed. As Mara passed him, he said, "Don't make this dramatic." Mara stopped. "You know what hurt the most?" she said quietly. "It wasn't getting kicked out. It was that you already had the trash bag ready." Tyler's face changed for half a second. Then it hardened. "Maybe don't be like your mother." Mara walked out before he could see her cry. For 11 nights, she slept in her 2004 Toyota behind the closed pharmacy on State Road. On the 12th night, the car died while snow was coming down soft and mean. The kind that doesn't look dangerous until your fingers stop working. The shelter had no beds. The motel wanted $69. Mara had $17 and a county auction flyer she had picked up, only because it was printed on bright yellow paper and her hands needed something to hold. Most of the auction listings were useless to her. Old filing cabinets, broken office chairs, a vending machine without a key. Then she saw it. Lot 9, Pine Street Bus Depot, as is, no minimum bid, buyer responsible for cleanup. She almost laughed. A bus station. The old Pine Street Depot had been empty since before she was 10. It sat 2 blocks from the river, windows boarded, roof sagging, the faded letters above the entrance barely readable. People said teenagers used to sneak in there. People said the city wanted it gone. People said it smelled like mildew and pigeon feathers. But the next morning, standing in a county basement between a scrap dealer and a man bidding on snowplows, Mara raised her hand when nobody else did. The clerk looked over his glasses. $17? Mara swallowed. "That's all I have." The room laughed. Not loud, just enough. The clerk shrugged. "Sold." That should have been the end of it. But when Mara went to sign the papers, the clerk slid a second envelope across the table. "This was attached to the parcel file," he said. No idea why. On the front, in handwriting she didn't recognize, were 3 words. For Mara Bell. For a second, she thought she was losing her mind. "How did you know I'd buy it?" she asked. The clerk frowned. "I didn't." Inside the envelope was a brass key, a brittle bus ticket from 2009, and a note written in blue ink. "Don't open the office first. Open locker 9. Mara stood there with the key in her palm, listening to the old pipes knock in the county basement. And honestly, that was the first moment she got scared. Not because the station was abandoned, because someone had been waiting for her to find it. The depot smelled like wet wood, rusted metal, and the ghost of diesel fuel. The front doors groaned when Mara pushed them open. Her flashlight moved across cracked tile, old benches, a ticket counter with glass so dirty it looked smoked, and a clock frozen at 11:42. Wind slipped through the broken panes and made the old route maps flutter against the wall. Millhaven to Dayton, Millhaven to Columbus, Millhaven to nowhere, Mara thought. She stepped carefully around fallen ceiling plaster. Somewhere above her, a pigeon moved with a soft, ugly flutter. Her breath came out white in front of her face. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Just find the locker, then leave." But the station didn't feel empty. That was the strange part. It felt paused, like everyone had stepped out for 5 minutes and would come back carrying suitcases and coffee, complaining about delayed buses. The lockers stood along the far wall, 12 metal doors painted green once, now scratched down to dull gray. Most were dented. One had no handle. Locker 9 had a strip of masking tape across it, so old the edges had curled. Mara tried the brass key. It turned. Inside was a shoebox wrapped in a plastic grocery bag, a child's red mitten, 3 newspaper clippings, and a cassette tape in a clear case. The label read, "Mara, play this alone." Her hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped it. She didn't own a cassette player. Nobody did anymore. But behind the ticket counter, sitting under a dead computer monitor, was an old portable recorder with yellowed buttons and a cord wrapped around it like someone had put it there yesterday. Mara plugged it into the wall. Nothing. She found another outlet near the payphone. The red light blinked. She pressed play. For 3 seconds, there was only tape hiss. Then her mother breathed in. "Mara, baby, listen to me. I know how this sounds, but I did not steal that money. I did not leave you. And if Denise told you I did, then she did exactly what I was afraid she would do." Mara sat down hard on the floor. The cold went through her jeans, but she didn't move. Her mother's voice was thinner than Mara remembered from old home videos. Tired, close to tears, but holding steady. The relief fund was real. The missing money was real, but I found where it went. It wasn't me. It was moved through the depot account, then through a company owned by a man with a gold watch. I made copies. I hid them where they stopped looking. There was a pause. Then Evelyn whispered, "Don't trust the first story. Don't trust the first apology. And whatever you do, don't let Denise sell the station." The tape clicked, stopped. Mara pressed play again, but that was all. For a long moment, she just sat there with her mother's voice still in the air. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted the truth. But the truth, she was starting to understand, had been locked in that station for 13 years. By noon the next day, Denise knew. Mara had no idea how. Maybe the county called. Maybe Tyler saw the records online. Maybe guilty people had alarms built into their bones. Denise arrived in a white SUV that looked too clean for Pine Street. Tyler got out of the passenger side, wearing sunglasses, though the sky was gray. "Mara," Denise said, standing in front of the depot like she owned the sidewalk. "What are you doing?" Mara stood in the doorway with dust on her coat. "I bought it." Denise laughed once. "No, sweetheart. You bought a lawsuit with a roof problem." Tyler stepped forward. "Look, we're trying to help. There's a developer interested. You sign it over, they'll give you $5,000. Cash. That's more than you've had in your life." Mara looked at him. "Why do you care?" Denise's face tightened. Because your mother ruined enough in this town. There it was, that sentence again. Mara felt something in her chest go still. To be honest, she said, I don't think you came because of the roof. Denise's eyes flicked toward the lockers. It was quick, too quick, but Mara saw it. And that's when she noticed the second thing. Denise wasn't afraid of the station. She was afraid Mara had found the wrong part of it. That night, someone broke in. Mara had gone to the gas station for coffee and came back to find the side door open. The shoebox was gone. The newspaper clippings were gone. The red mitten was gone. But the cassette was still in Mara's coat pocket. And under the ticket counter, where the shoebox had been, she found something she hadn't seen before. A small arrow carved into the wood. It pointed toward the arrivals board. The board was huge, the old kind, with removable black letters and yellow destinations. Most of the letters had fallen. One line still read, Last bus, 11:42. Mara remembered the frozen clock. 11:42. She pulled at the board. Nothing happened. She pulled again, harder. The right side shifted half an inch. Behind it was a narrow door, and behind that door was the room her mother had died trying to protect. It was barely bigger than a closet, but it had been sealed from dust. Metal shelves lined the walls. Boxes sat labeled by year. There were bank statements, bus depot ledgers, photocopied checks, and a small envelope with Mara's full name on it. Not Mara Bell, Mara Evelyn Price Bell. Price. Her knees almost gave out. Calvin Price was the man trying to buy the station. Everyone in Millhaven knew him. Developer, donor, smiling face on hospital plaques, gold watch in every newspaper photo. Mara opened the envelope. Inside was her birth certificate. Father, Calvin Andrew Price. She covered her mouth with her hand. No, she whispered. No, no, no. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't care whether you're ready. The next document was a notarized statement from Evelyn Bell. Calvin Price had been married when Mara was born. Denise had known. Denise had helped hide it. When Evelyn discovered Calvin had moved disaster relief money through the depot's accounts to buy riverfront property cheap, she threatened to expose him. So they gave the town a simpler story. Poor bookkeeper steals money. Poor bookkeeper runs away. Poor bookkeeper leaves her daughter behind. Only Evelyn hadn't run. She had spent her final months gathering proof, hiding copies inside the station, and trying to get one person to believe her. Her sister, Denise. At the bottom of the statement, Evelyn had written one line by hand. If my daughter ever asks why I stayed quiet, tell her I was trying to keep her alive. Mara sank onto the floor of the hidden room. For 13 years, she had carried shame that never belonged to her. For 13 years, people had looked at her like she was the echo of a crime. For 13 years, Denise had fed her, clothed her, corrected her, punished her, and called it sacrifice, while hiding the fact that she had helped bury Mara's mother's name. No one tells you how much betrayal actually hurts until it explains your whole childhood. The next morning, Mara walked into the Millhaven courthouse with the cassette tape, the documents, and Gus Hanley, the old mechanic who had worked the depot until it closed. Gus had found her crying on the depot steps at dawn. He didn't ask too many questions. He just said, "Your mama was the only honest person in that building." Then he drove her to a legal aid office in a pickup that smelled like motor oil and peppermint gum. Within 72 hours, Calvin Price's lawyer called. Then Denise called. Then Tyler. Then the city. Everybody suddenly wanted to talk gently. Denise came last. She stood inside the depot waiting room, eyes red, coat buttoned wrong. "Listen," she said. "You don't understand what it was like back then." Mara stood by locker 9. "You let me think she left me." Denise looked down. "I was scared. You let me hate her. I raised you." Mara's voice broke. "No, you kept me." Denise flinched like the words had landed physically. Mara wiped her face with her sleeve. "I know how this sounds, But I used to pray you would tell me one good thing about her. Just one. And every time, you made her smaller." Denise began to cry. Mara didn't comfort her. That was new. Calvin Price was never dragged out in handcuffs, like in the movies. Real justice is slower than that. It comes in letters, hearings, depositions, frozen accounts, resignations, headlines that use cautious words like alleged and under investigation. But the story came out. The relief fund, the shell company, the depot records, the birth certificate, the tape. And once the town heard Evelyn Bell's voice saying, "I did not steal that money," something shifted that no court order could fully measure. People started leaving flowers at the depot, then notes, then apologies. Some were too late, most were too small. But Mara read every one. The city offered to buy the depot back. Calvin's attorneys offered a settlement with a number so large Mara had to read it 3 times. Tyler told her she was being selfish for destroying the family. Mara almost laughed at that. The family had been destroyed before she was old enough to spell the word. She didn't sell. Not then. Not when the roof leaked over Bay 3. Not when the first contractor told her the building was a nightmare. Not when Denise wrote her a 6-page apology Mara wasn't ready to answer. With the settlement money, the legal award, and donations from people who had once believed the lie, Mara restored the Pine Street Depot. Not as a museum, not as apartments, as a night shelter and legal aid stop for women and kids who had nowhere to go and nobody safe to call. She kept the old clock at 11:42. She kept locker 9 behind glass. And in the waiting room, above the benches, she hung a framed photo of Evelyn Bell in her bus driver uniform, smiling with one hand on the wheel. Under it, a small brass plaque read, "Evelyn Bell, Transit House." For everyone who was told their story was over. On opening night, Mara stood under the restored sign while the first families came in from the cold. Gus stood beside her, pretending the wind was the reason his eyes were wet. A little girl walked past Mara, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear, and asked, "Do the buses still come here?" Mara looked at the benches, the warm lights, the front doors opening again and again. "Yeah," she said softly, "just not the kind you're thinking of. Because some places don't take you away. Some places bring you back." Mara Bell did not become free because she bought a building for $17. She became free because, for the first time in her life, the voice everyone tried to bury finally got to tell the truth.